Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Kim Egger, who's the founder of Treasures in Heaven Property Management. Kim, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Happy to be here.
Hey, I'm excited to talk to you because I always love hearing people's journey, struggles, successes, lessons learned. And I think that's what we're going to really cover here. And I want to hear all about what you do at Treasures in Heaven as well. Get us started with a little bit of your story and background. What has your entrepreneurial journey been like to this point in your career?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mike. So, I've got a really interesting history when it comes to how I made the transition. I started out in banking when I was 14 years old. My dad got me my first job at this little community bank. And that time they used to use proof machines to process the checks. I don't know if you remember this or not, but I ended up staying in that career of banking, working my way up from cashier to teller, head teller, went into new accounts, went into mortgage lending, insurance lending, sales, management. And I had found myself, this was probably back in 2015 maybe, I ended up transitioning into the commercial banking world, and I was doing a lot of lending at a corporate bank for large firms, and I spent 10 years plus in that position. And during that time frame, I really found this passion for real estate. It was super interesting to me. But one thing I noticed was I was getting really burned out. And a lot of the burnout came from wanting to achieve on the sales side. I was really focused on being number one in the organization, and it impacted my health. And I ended up experiencing a major health crisis. And this would have been in 2022. I ended up with a pulmonary embolism. And I decided at that point in time, I needed to change my career. So I ended up leaving my really good job at the bank, left my home in Chicago and moved out to Sedona, Arizona. And that leap of faith really led me just to start over, not just professionally, but also spiritually and emotionally. And at that time, I started investing in real estate, discovered I had a natural gift for managing and optimizing short-term rental properties. Started with just a few luxury homes and have since grown it to a thriving boutique property management firm, managing properties across Arizona. Also have one down in the Florida Keys. And as I built wealth on my terms, people began asking me how I did it. And then that's when I stepped into the consulting and coaching side. So now, aside from doing the property management, I also help others, especially professionals that are stuck in the W-2 roles, break free of that and rediscover their joy and build a life that they truly want through real estate, mindset, and entrepreneurship.
If you had said, I was a trust fund baby, and so I started, managing some properties, and it's been pretty easy. Well, nobody would really take that seriously because where's the skin in the game in that? You probably, if we were to go deep on those lessons you learned after that pulmonary embolism, it was like, okay, I was pushing and I was this and I was that, and that would take like a whole weekend, seminar to go that deep. But I can only imagine, right? Like, and you probably were like the frog in the water scenario. Like, it's like, oh, the frog doesn't jump out. If you turn it up to boiling, it does. But slowly but surely, you were boiling and you were pushing yourself. And guess who did that to you? Yourself. And so probably when you realize that, you're like, okay, I want to be successful, but let's do it the right way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And then you're giving back. It's not like, okay, cool, I'm going to be the queen of everything property management, short-term rental, and I'm going to make $1 billion. Now you're going, hey, let me pass along some of these lessons. So talk a little bit about how you serve your clients and what's the problem that they're experiencing that you're looking to help them solve.
Yeah. So, I take a lot of pride in serving my client. And now it's so interesting because this is not work for me. This is fun and
Hmm.
it fulfills my passion. And so I serve my clients by helping them reclaim their time, their financial independence, and their sense of purpose. And the problem that I solve is twofold. First, I help overwhelmed professionals transition out of their jobs that drain them and into freedom-based businesses that align with their values. And I also help individuals, primarily women, particularly that have suffered from trauma and abuse, overcome their limiting beliefs so that they know that they can actually create whatever life it is. And a great way to do that is through real estate. And then I also, for property owners and inspiring investors, I provide boutique white glove property management and consulting services that help turn their real estate into true passive income.
When you were describing that, it made me think of breaking free. You mentioned
Yeah.
W-2, you mentioned mindset, and, a lot of people that just punch the clock, so to speak. They get their salary, they have their job, they're just going to wait till retirement and hope for the best. But they don't realize that and these days with any kind of business, if you want to start a business, have a side hustle, but what you do in real estate, you don't need to resign from your W-2 job and break free. You can start things all, immediately by learning things and doing things nights and weekend. So talk a little bit about that competitive advantage that you offer the people you work with, where, anybody out there can Google how to invest in real estate, how to do short-term rental. What is some of the differences that you provide to your clients?
Oh, sure. Well, absolutely. I would say that my edge is the fact that I've lived an experience. I've lived through
Yeah.
it. So I'm not teaching a theory. I've walked away from the corporate burnout. I've started completely over from scratch, built multiple businesses. I've created both wealth and freedom from ground up. So again, it's not teaching through theory, it's teaching through living it. I've actually lived that where I've had nothing and I've had to recreate and start over. And I did it because of my health. But what I've done is I've opened up the floodgate of all these other magnificent aspects of my life now. So, I can also say my financial background, being in banking since I was 14 years old, working in every area of the bank, working in the commercial real estate area, residential real estate, that definitely gives me a unique lens on profitability, on risk,
Yeah.
growth. Well, also my coaching blends strategy with deep mindset shifts. So
Yeah.
my clients don't just get business advice. Really what they get is transformation.
Yeah. And I think that when the true transformation comes with belief, meaning, if you talk about, oh, I can help you make $4 million a year and you've never made more than 40,000, they're
Mhm.
not going to really believe that. But when you can instill that belief in someone and go, hey, look, I've been where you're at. I can show you how to get here, and at this level, that belief starts to come. And then they have a little mini success and that motivates them, and a little mini success. So, talk about it a little bit, how belief factors into, what you're doing to help them, really achieve those goals.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I love this question. Thank you so much for bringing it
Hmm.
up. So I truly believe that the universe has an infinite supply. There is enough for everybody. And what this life is really about is being able to, through the imagination, through the visualization, and through the knowingness that everything that you want is already out in the universe, you just have to call it forward. And you really have to have a strong mindset shift for that. So, for example, when I'm working at the bank and let's say I'm making, 100, 200,000, I'm getting bonuses, health care, lots of time off. I've got a really good life, but there's more to life out there. And
Yeah.
if you're stuck in a mindset of you have enough, you're not going to get more. You have to grasp onto that concept that holy cow, that's just a paradigm. That's just what I was taught. Like I was told that my dad got me a job when I was 14 and I became a banker. That became a paradigm for me that this is what my life was going to look like. But when I made that shift due to the health scare, it opened up something in me that said, you know what, I can actually create whatever life I want, and I don't have to be a banker, and that
Yeah.
the universe supports me. So really, it's truly that mindset and the belief that you can create anything you want. You can create the life that you imagine. It's true. And I am just living proof of it. And what I get excited about is sharing it with people,
Yeah.
especially people that are, stuck in that burnout. They don't think they can achieve more. They think they're not smart enough, not good enough. And really just showing them, hey, look, like I lived that life. I came from a lifetime of trauma and abuse and limiting beliefs. And I was able to flip my mindset. And I mean, what I've created to this point, it's to me would have been unimaginable 5 years ago that I would
Yeah.
be sitting here today talking to you, Mike, about this topic. So thank you for
Well, if
asking.
if you're welcome, and if we could put, I don't know what the technical scientific term is, but some sort of a indicator, barometer, electric kind of whatever device to gauge your level of energy before I asked that question. And when I asked you that question, you just came to life on that. So I know that that is so
Yeah.
impactful for you. But guess what? The reason that you're so excited and passionate, enthusiastic about that is probably because of the contrast in where you are now and where you came from. So can you share a failure or breakdown that you've experienced, whether it's been personal or professional, that kind of laid the foundation for you where you are now?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I can say that when I ended my career in banking, I needed to be number one in the company, and I really struggled while I was not making my goals. And I don't even want to say not making them. I was still achieving damn good numbers. I was performing really well, but it wasn't number one.
Yeah.
So what that ended up doing was just manifesting discord in my body or disease. Like my body just became sick. And it was really my health scare that was a result of the pressure I put on myself. That health scare was the breakdown that shattered this illusion that I could just keep pushing through. It was almost like a spiritual wake up call, like that moment where I could no longer deny that something in my life had to change or I would no longer be here. And I remember laying in the hospital wondering if this is it, did I really live the life that I wanted? And the answer was no.
Mm.
And gosh, I mean, it was really fate that just carried me through the dark place. I didn't have a clear roadmap. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know where I was going to live. But I trusted that if I took that first step, that God or higher power would be there and support me. And that trust led me to Sedona, to the healing, to the nature, and ultimately to my purpose of serving people. And that really came from not achieving the goal and putting the
Yeah.
pressure on myself, really. And I did that several times throughout the years when I was in my banking career, where I would just beat myself up over not being number one. And when I think back now, that really came from limiting beliefs that were created in me as a child, going all the way back to childhood. You know, there wasn't encouragement, in the household to go to school. There wasn't encouragement to do anything other than what I was told to do. And internally, intrinsically, I knew I wanted more. So, yeah, I hope that addresses the question for you.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm confident that you had mentors and you put yourself through personal development programs. And when you were saying, well, you just have to put one foot in front of the other and have faith. Well, how did you develop that faith to move through those challenges and breakdowns? Because I would venture to say that at some point you're like, oh, I can't do that. Or, well, that sounds too easy. That wouldn't apply to me. Or that's way too hard. I can't do it. Talk a little bit about how faith played a role in moving through those challenges.
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. So, even just thinking back upon everything that I went through, and I talk about my challenges in business, but throughout my childhood, and I been previously married, suffering from trauma and abuse, and continually being beat down mentally and psychologically. um, it would have been really easy for me to give up But what I found was I had a lot of amazing mentors surrounding me that always believed in me, always encouraged me, always told me that I could do whatever I set my mind to. And really, through meeting them and through going through all these challenges, whether in business or in life, I'm constantly reminded just to surrender to the illusion of control and that I need to realign myself with divine guidance and higher power and God. And the that breakdown that I experienced with my health really opened me up. It cleared the way for reinvention of myself. I stopped living to meet the external expectations and I began designing a life from the inside out. And I did that. I've spent so much money on self-development, and I went back to college when I was 44 to get my degree. So constantly just doing things to improve myself and knowing that with every improvement that I made, it was getting me closer to the life that I had designed. And really, as I prioritized peace and purpose and alignment, everything else just began to flow. Opportunities came, clients came, abundance came, and with that came joy. And I learned that when you build from authenticity and service, the success becomes inevitable.
Yeah. You said a couple things that stood out to me that I want to kind of go a little bit deeper on. You want to be number one. So how do you balance now when you're coaching other people to be successful? How do you balance the striving to be number one and the surrendering of control that you just mentioned?
Yeah, I think it's really flipping the switch and knowing that, a goal is just a goal. And my purpose in life is not to achieve a goal, a single goal. My purpose in life is to serve others. And it's through focusing on the service to others that I become successful. So instead of like looking at that KPI and saying like, oh gosh, if I don't book 3 new property owners this month, I failed. I haven't failed. What's important is how am I serving the owners that I do bring in? What am I doing to make their lives better? So flipping that from like, what am I going to get from it to no, what am I going to give for it? Because it's the giving that you get back in return.
That's a huge, huge mindset shift. It is like flipping the switch. I think that it sounds like, okay, cool, I'll do that. And people would start to do that. And I'm sure you experience this too. You feel like, okay, I'm checking the box. This month I did that. The next month did that. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, I'm struggling with that again. So I think if people struggle with something similar to what we're talking about there, you can always keep it on the forefront of your mind and improve it and mitigate it and lessen it. But you're never going to be like, Yahoo, I've conquered it.
Absolutely. So true.
So because of some of these kind of challenges and hurdles, how did going through those lead to even more success in your career?
Honestly, I think I would have, I wouldn't have rushed my journey. So I wouldn't rush through it, but what I would have done is I would have listened to my inner voice sooner. So I really, this calling to be more on the coaching, consulting, serving aspect, that's been calling me for many, many years. I would probably say since my 20s. I've been thinking about, how can I best serve people? But I never really listened to my inner voice because I didn't have the confidence to make any changes due to those paradigms that just kept me held in the position I was in. So, I spent years overriding my intuition because I was conditioned to equate safety with stability, even if it cost me my health. I know now that the true safety actually comes from alignment, and it's alignment and purpose. And if I had to if I had one do-over, I'd start asking what brings me peace much earlier. And then I would act on that answer, and I'd act on it without guilt.
Yeah. I think guilt it's a powerful word because I think people might initially go, oh, no, I don't struggle with that. But then they really do because they feel like, oh, well, I feel, why do I feel like this quarter, this month was just spectacular, but wow, I feel guilty that I had that success
Yeah.
and other people didn't, or I feel guilty that whatever the case might be. So I think guilt is you bring up a great point. If you could do things differently, you'd go back and go, hey, I'd allow myself to have this, move past that, have some more peace and eliminate guilt.
Definitely, definitely. And this is one thing people don't realize is that the guilt is actually it's man-made. So guilt
Yeah.
is it's a man-made suppressive emotion, and it's suppressive in the form that you can't grow when you've got guilt as a planted seed in the back of your mind, and it trades your goals and your growth for a
Hmm.
perceived duty. And that's what I think people miss out on when they're feeling guilt. They need to think about where is this coming from, and
Yeah.
how is it limiting me? Because the last thing you want to do is to limit yourself and limit your growth.
Yeah. That's huge. So I know we've talked about a lot of different attributes, but what are some of those top key attributes that people need to be aware of so that they can manage their feelings and success to push through personal and professional struggles? So think about, like peace and guilt and things like that, or perseverance. And what are some of those key attributes that you kind of go to when you're working with your clients?
Yeah, so I think the number one for me is it's resilience.
Mm,
Um, so having the ability to just adapt and keep going, even when things don't go to plan. But knowing if you continue to focus on that purpose and mission, again, in the spirit of service, then the resilience will come naturally because you won't get stuck in that thought of, oh, I can't do this. I'm too tired. I can't, I need help with this and get stuck where you can go, hey, wait a second. I'm not doing this for me. This life isn't about me. This life is about serving others. And that's what
hmm
creates the resilience for me. And then I would also say I've really had to work hard on learning emotional regulation. So, learning how to stay grounded in the storm and how to respond to a situation as opposed to reacting to a situation. So, that has been a huge component for me. I would consider myself a highly emotional being. And in the past, that would often cause me to retreat and pull back. And so now, when I feel that process coming on and I'm starting the retreat, I start to think to myself, how is this benefiting me? And what do I need
Yeah.
to do different? And I think about the response as opposed to the reaction. And, a couple other things I would say, just having clarity of your values. When you know what you stand for, your
hmm
decisions become a lot easier. Having faith and flexibility. You need both, really.
hmm
And belief in something greater and the openness to pivot when needed. And finally, I would say resourcefulness. This is
Yeah.
definitely resourcefulness. I learned this throughout my banking career. I'll figure it out, but if you think about that one book, and I apologize, I cannot think of who wrote it, but it's Who Not How. So the resourcefulness of like I'll figure it out, but it doesn't mean that I have to do it. It may mean that I need to pick up the phone and call someone, or I need to extend for help. Who can help me figure this out and help
Yeah.
me create this? The who, not how, and the resourcefulness of it has been hugely beneficial, especially in growing the property management company because I'm a salesperson by nature, and so the operations side is a huge struggle for me. And thankfully, I'm resourceful enough that I can pull things out of my hat from the past and make connections and find people to help me fill those gaps that I am not talented in.
Yeah, that's a big point that you're bringing up there. The who, not how. I think a quick Google search would pull that up, but the concept is so strong. And probably if you were working with one of your clients, coaching and consulting and guiding them, and you asked them a question and they would give you an answer, you would probably, dig in, have them dig in a little bit deeper. Like, okay, that's good. That's a good answer, but let's go a bit deeper. How come really this is a struggle? So I say that to lead into this question. You've definitely mentioned qualities and characteristics and resilience and perseverance, all those things to overcome struggles. You've learned lessons. You've talked about your purpose. Underneath all of that, what is your why?
Okay. This is interesting because I just had this revelation literally just this past weekend, that, I thought that my why, that the word was service. I think my why now, though, is it's freedom. And not just freedom for myself, but freedom for the people that I serve. So I guess it's taking the service a step deeper. It's not just the service of others, but I want to bring freedom to them. I'm here to help them break the generational cycles of burnout, scarcity, settling, limiting beliefs, break all those things and paradigms that are stuck in the back of their mindset. And I want them to be living, I want to be living a living example that it's never too late to rewrite your story, to create wealth with integrity, to find joy in your work, and really to live in alignment with your soul. And that's how I would define freedom. And I want that for everyone.
Well, yeah, that is awesome, Kim. Well, that is just spectacular. It's neat when you can sit down and chronicle, here's where I've come from, here's where I'm at, and probably we could have a whole other conversation of where you headed, because I would venture to say you would check the box. No, I am not a success. I have not arrived. I still have work to do. And so I think that when you are consistently applying these lessons to your life, you're going to continue to grow. So thank you so much for your transparency. This has been a spectacular conversation. If someone is interested in reaching out and connecting with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So I would say probably the first start is just to find me either on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I'm on all the platforms. So it's so funny because, as I said, I'm not very operationally organized, so I couldn't give you any of my handles offhand, but I'm sure you'll be able to put them in the show notes for me. But yeah, just Google Kim Egger and Treasures in Heaven Property Management, and I'm sure you'll find a plethora of information and ways to contact me.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on, Kim. It was a real pleasure talking with you.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Mike. Take care.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.